everyone, today we are going to talk about measuring angles in degrees. We will also determine angle measures that are coterminal with each other. Get ready to unlock the power of math together. Let's dive right in. So let's review how many degrees form a straight line, and that is 180 degrees. And the degrees that form our circle is 360. Now, remembering how to label the quadrants of your coordinate plane, we always start in the upper right with 1, and then you go like a C or counterclockwise. So 2, 3, and then 4. Again, start at the top and make a C. Now, an angle is formed by rotating a ray around its endpoint. So if you have, let's say, a positive angle, you will open up and around. And if you have a negative angle, you would open down and around. Now, an angle that is in standard position has its vertex right here at the origin. And its initial side or its starting side coincides with the positive x-axis. So here is your initial. So you're always starting here as you're counting. And then let's say you have a terminal side. Let's say your angle ends up here. This would be the terminal side. Now you can draw a positive angle, right? Remember, positive, you always start on the positive x-axis, and to draw a positive angle, let's say we can open up and around, and let's say we end up here as our terminal side. So you would be going counterclockwise. And then if you draw a negative angle, you would open down and around. So let's say we end here as our terminal side. You would be counting clockwise. Okay, so we're going to draw these angles in standard positions. So first you need to think about how you are counting, right? So we start here at 0 degrees, and we know that a straight line is 180. Halfway would be 90 degrees. So in order to draw 100, we're going to start right here on our positive x-axis, and then we are going to open our terminal side a little bit past the 90 degrees, and we're going to draw our little arrow of rotation that shows we are opening up and around in the positive direction. And the terminal side would end in quadrant number 2. So here you have negative 85. So we're always starting here at 0. But instead of counting up and around to 90, you need to count down and around to negative 90. And because negative 85 is a little short of negative 90, our terminal side would end up in quadrant number 4. Now your arrow of rotation is going to show that you are opening down and around to indicate that you're opening up in the negative direction. All right, so here we have 560. So we know we have 0, you have 90, you have 180. If I were to count another 90 degrees, this would be 270. Going all the way around would get me 360. Now, if you look at your angle, you have 560, which is technically one full rotation around. That is 360. So let's figure out what this difference would be. And that would be 200. So when I draw my initial side here, I know that I would have to open up and around and make one full rotation around to get 360. And then I have to consider where 200 is. I'm going to open up, up, up a little bit more, and then my terminal side would end up here. So you do want to show, it looks sort of like a snail. We're opening up and around, one full rotation, and then opening all the way a little bit more for our terminal side to end in quadrant number 3. Now here with negative 240, you have 0. Again, counting negative 90. Here is negative 180. And here is negative 270. So notice that from positive angles versus negative, the 90 and the 270 are the ones that flip-flop. So we are starting here with our initial side at 0, going down and around to 240, which is a little bit more than halfway, a little bit closer to negative 270 versus negative 180. And again, showing your arrow of rotation going down and around. Our terminal side ends in quadrant number 2. Here we're going to look at coterminal angles. Now, coterminal angles are angles that share the same initial side and the same terminal side. So if you think about co, that prefix co, right, they are together sharing the same ending side and beginning side. Now, when you really think about this angle are pretty much the same, right? Now, you can make as many and infinite rotations in either the positive direction or the negative direction. Still will end up with the same terminal side and the same initial side. So if I look at 45 degrees, right, if I were to go one full rotation around, what I would do is, because I'm going one full rotation, I would add 360 degrees. And if I wanted to go the other way and make a full rotation and end in that same spot, I would just subtract 360 degrees. So adding or subtracting 360 degrees are what's going to give you your coterminal angles. Okay, so here we've got 90, and we are going to add 360 degrees to that to get a positive answer, which is 450. So here we have our initial side, and we are going to make one full rotation around and more to get me that 450. And then if you subtract 90 minus 360, what you'll get is negative 270. So I'm going to have same initial side, negative 270. Don't have to make one full rotation. We'll just end up right here, same spot with negative 270. So again, we're looking at positive and negative coterminal angles. Here you have 60 degrees, and I'm going to add 360 to that, which would get me 420. So initial side, one full rotation around got you 360. And if I were to keep on going, 60 degrees or 420 would end you here. And if I take 60 and then I say, hey, I want a negative coterminal, I want to subtract. That would get me negative 300. So negative 300, initial side, going all the way around, that was negative 270, ending in that same spot, which would get you negative 300. And last but not least, we got negative 140. I'm going to add 360 to there to get me 220. There's my positive answer. So here we go. Positive 220 is right about here. And if I were to take the negative, so subtract 360, that would get me negative 500. So starting down and around to get me all the way back to the same spot. Again, you can add or subtract 360 to get you positive or negative coterminal angles. But remember, if we ask you for positive, you got to add until you get to a positive answer. Or if we ask you for a negative, you have to subtract until you get to a negative answer. Okay, here we're going to look at reference angles. Now, reference angles are acute, right? So we know they're between 0 to 90, so they're less than 90 degrees. They are formed by the x-axis, so by your x-axis, and the terminal side of your angle. So let's say you have terminal sides here, 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 or here. These would be your reference angles. Now, in this picture, your 4 reference angles are congruent. Okay, so again, never the y-axis. We're always looking at the x-axis and the terminal side. So I'm just looking at the little angles here. So in this first question, we're going to talk about what the reference angle is. So 100 degrees, we know, is right about here. So there's 100 degrees. Now, here you have your terminal side, right? This is your terminal side. And with your closest x-axis, that is here. So I want to know what is this angle, right? So your closest x-axis is 80 degrees. So if I take 180 minus 100, that would be 80 degrees. So I have a reference angle of 80 degrees. Here we have negative 140. So negative 140, we are, let's say, right about here. So negative 140. Your closest x-axis is right here, right? Terminal side, closest x-axis. So that's a negative 180. Remember that your reference angles are between 0 and 90, never negative. So I'm going to take 180 minus 140, and I'm going to get 40 degrees. And in the third question, here is initial side. 300, I'd go up and around, and I would be right about here. There's 300. Now, think about where is your closest x-axis, right? Closest x-axis is here. Terminal side is here. So I want to know, what is this? Okay. Because we've gone almost one full rotation around, that closest x-axis is not 0, it's 360, right? So I'm going to take 360, I'm going to subtract 300 from it, and my reference angle would be 60 degrees. Now, if you said that the closest x-axis was 0, if I do 300 minus 0, that's way too big, right? So your reference angles have to be between 0 and 90. Thanks for learning with me today, unlocking the power of math one problem at a time. Don't forget to like and subscribe for future notifications on Algebra 2 videos. See you in the next lesson.